Good morning, everyone, and good day, and to some of you, good evening. Welcome to another of our programs, Straight Talk, which we usually would broadcast every week to our listeners at home and abroad. Today, we're going to speak about how to lobby for a change of government overseas. You would have noticed, my friends, that the government and the operatives overseas, like in New York City, in the United States of America, have been constantly organizing marches to demonstrate the support that they claim people in the United States have for the government of the day in Guyana. But while marches and so on overseas are important to lobby and to galvanize support for the government, what is even more important is what is taking place at home in Guyana. By this I mean the constant marches, protests, and demonstrations that are occurring in our country, particularly in the capital city and in the various locations in the various regions, to demand that the government set a date for elections, and that they dissolve the parliament, and that free and fair elections be held in our country. This, for many Guyanese, is what is of utmost urgency. And so that right now in Guyana, demonstrations are taking place almost on a weekly basis throughout the length and breadth of our country, demanding that the government dissolve parliament, fix a date for elections, and actually hold elections in our country. For this to happen, it means that pressure has to be exerted on the government. Of course, no government welcomes pressure, and they will resist pressure. But the fact of the matter is that all over the world, in all countries, unless pressure is exerted by people who are demanding justice, people who feel a sense of betrayal, people who need not the good life, but a life to lift them out of poverty, they are quite justified in making their demands in a peaceful and a constitutional way, which is to demand by way of protests and demonstrations that the government hold free and fair elections. What needs to happen is that the struggle at home must be combined with the struggle abroad. And this struggle abroad has to involve Guyanese from all walks of life who have a deep concern and abiding love for their country. They must involve themselves in activities not only to bring pressure on the government at home and to sensitize people abroad in the country where they live, so that they become more aware of how serious the situation is at home. What is also important is for lobbying activities to take place in the countries where Guyanese are best organized and want to see change for the better in their country. I would like to remind you, or for those who may not know of it, that in 1992, prior to the elections in our country, Dr. Cheddi Jagan set out to lobby governments, parliaments, Congress, and senators in the United States, in Canada, and in the United Kingdom, and even in CARICOM, to demand free and fair elections. These lobbying exercises took the forms of activities or visits to congressmen and senators on Capitol Hill in Washington, having one-on-one conversations with these congressmen and these senators, also writing to them, outlaying the situation in our country, providing them with all the facts that they've requested. And it also has to do, at the same time, with talking to other people of influence in non-governmental organizations who may have an interest in seeing democracy be maintained in our country. So that the lobbying takes place in those capital cities where there are large amounts of Guyanese living. And those, what I've mentioned earlier, whether it's in Washington, New York, Toronto, Ottawa, London, or any of the capitals in the Caribbean countries, this type of activity is extremely important. And the experience which was undertaken prior to the 92 elections had proven to be extremely effective, because there's nothing that can replace the one-on-one direct conversations with these individuals so that they get to know the individuals better and they get a better appreciation and understanding of what the situation is in Guyana. We have to appeal to the reasonableness, the sense of reasonableness in order to support our struggle at home. In Washington, apart from speaking and lobbying and writing letters to congressmen and senators in your states where you may live, notwithstanding the fact that elections are soon due in the United States, all these activities can go on. In Washington, there's also the Organization of American States. The Organization of American States has a Committee for Human Rights, which meets on a regular basis to review the human rights situation in every member state belonging to the Organization of American States, of which Guyana is a state party. So lobbying the Organization of American States is also part and parcel of the overseas activities that ought to be carried out. There are also the embassies of Washington, the Guyana Embassy in Washington, and there's the consulate in New York, where picketing exercises can be carried on as well. More than that, in the Commonwealth Secretariat in London, our Guyanese friends and citizens, or residents I might say, or persons of Guyanese origin who are resident in the United Kingdom, can write letters to the Commonwealth Secretariat. They can also lobby. There's an organization that is called the Commonwealth Ministerial Advisory Committee, CIMAC, whose responsibility it is to oversee member states in order to ensure that they are not violating human rights or trampling on the Constitution of the member states of the Commonwealth. The United Nations in New York City has a Human Rights Commission, which also pays attention to human rights violations, constitutional violations, travesties in the member states of the United Nations. So there are a host of intergovernmental organizations around the world to which Guyana belongs, and I should not overlook the European Union in Brussels, which is the headquarters of the European Commission. For Guyanese who live in Europe, they can also take protest actions in a peaceful manner towards the United Nations as well as the European Commission in Brussels. Nearer to home, we have the CARICOM Secretariat, and we have the member states of CARICOM where attention has been placed within recent times in order to draw to the attention of CARICOM how one of its member states is not only violating the Constitution of Guyana, but is totally ignoring the ruling, the consequential rulings of the Caribbean Court of Justice. Recently, the CARICOM Secretariat has been brought under the limelight to treat with the Guyanese concerns in their country in respect to free and fair elections. So that all the talk about outside interference, or what they may call as non-interference in the internal affairs of Guyana when it comes to elections, hold absolutely no water whatsoever. Because Guyana is a beneficiary of United Nations activities. Guyana is a beneficiary of Commonwealth funds as well. And Guyana is a beneficiary of many of the activities of the intergovernmental organization to which it belongs. And in today's world, this whole question of non-interference in a world that is almost completely globalized makes no sense whatsoever. I am not suggesting that countries that are friendly to Guyana or organizations that are friendly to Guyana should willy-nilly interfere in the internal affairs of our country. But because Guyana is a signatory to the conventions and the treaties in these countries and to these organizations, which call for upholding human rights, ensuring good governance, and also, most of all, to ensure that the legitimate rights of the people are respected, particularly respect to free and fair elections, then it means that these countries and these international organizations have a say in ensuring that Guyana remains on a democratic path. So that when we hear talk about non-interference in internal affairs, we have to ask ourselves, are we hearing non-interference in internal affairs of a country called Guyana, where the Caribbean Court of Justice's rulings are being ignored, where the democratic rights of the people are being ignored as well? Are we to understand that in a country where these violations are taking place, there must be no interference, or there must be no intervention by these countries in the internal affairs of Guyana? Throughout the history of our country, we've always had a problem with internal affairs in our country. In 1992, had it not been for the Carter Center, had it not been for many other international organizations such as the United Nations, CARICOM, and even the OAS, we'd never have had free and fair elections in this country. Of course, the struggle of the people at home is also important, and that's why I mentioned, if you have a good combination of the struggle at home together with the struggle overseas, that is to say, a good harmonious combination of the national and international, then we can be assured of success for our struggles here in Guyana for free and fair elections. I leave with you, my friend, this message, that the struggle at home must continue, that the struggle abroad in terms of lobbying must go on. And once we find a good blend between the national struggle and the international struggle of the Guyanese people, I am sure, and you can rest assured, that we will be successful in bringing about a change which the people of this country have been pressing for the past few years. Not a change that they voted for in 2015, but a real positive and democratic change to bring to the nation a government and governance, a system of democracy that is to the satisfaction of each Guyanese man, each Guyanese woman, and each Guyanese child. Thank you very much for your attention, and we look forward to being with you on our next program, Straight Talk. Goodbye.